In late November 1998, Chicago police cordoned off a section of the city's northwest side. Reporters and onlookers gathered on the chance that there might be a gruesome discovery. Police had received a tip that the yard behind this picket fence had been used as a burial ground 20 years earlier by John Wayne Gacy. Investigators dug it up and found nothing at all. And yet the attention lavished on this one bad lead was a fitting postscript to the life of a man who fooled the world while he killed at least 33 people.
Gacy, I'm sure, from wherever he is right now, was laughing hilariously at the people digging, or he's laughing today that they didn't dig in the right place to find something that he's left.
In the Chicago winter of 1942, John and Marion Gacy awaited the birth of their second child. The young couple already had a daughter, but John longed for a son to carry on the family name. On March 17th, he got his wish when Marion gave birth to a boy. They named him John Wayne, after Marion's favorite movie star. The Gacy children, including a third child, Karen, born 2 years later, grew up in this modest bungalow in a blue-collar neighborhood. Their father, the son of Polish immigrants and a World War I veteran, worked as a machinist building control panels for utility companies.
He was the breadwinner, so that's what I think he thought his respective duties were, to bring home and provide for us, a home and food, but he wasn't the nurturer.
Gacy Sr. was an uncompromising man who demanded obedience from his children, especially his only son. He expected Johnny to be like the other boys who played stickball, climbed trees, and fished. The father was an avid fisherman and tried to teach his son the sport, but the boy had no interest. Instead, Johnny would much rather cook with his sisters or garden with his mother.
When he wanted to work on flower beds that he put in around the house, it was like, you know, the sissy thing to do. And Dad was very vocal about that.
John wanted his father to know, "Dad, I love you. I am your son. But please, let me be Johnny Gacy."
The father would often ridicule Johnny in front of his sisters and other children in the neighborhood.
It's just a constant stream of, "You wimp. You know, you're not going to be anything. You can't do this. What are you, one of the girls?" Taunts from a father toward his son can be devastating.
While Johnny's father was rigid and emotionally distant, the boy developed a special bond with his mother.
Mom was a confidant. You could go to Mom and tell her a lot of things that you couldn't talk to Dad about. And I think my dad felt threatened by that, felt like they were keeping secrets from him.
Marion was a homemaker, but her husband acted as if he ran the household. The couple argued frequently about everything, from chores to child rearing.
She tried so hard to keep the family together, knowing that her husband drank, and when he drank, he went into rages, and he usually turned on John.
After his shift on the assembly line, Johnny's father would escape to the basement, where he would drink brandy before supper. Marion and the children would wait at the dinner table in fear and silence until he climbed the stairs drunk. If the children misbehaved, he would spank them with a razor strap.
We actually learned how to toughen up against it. And John especially, he would not cry. He would not cry, and sometimes I think that made Dad angry.
Johnny not only felt alienated at home, he longed to be accepted by his classmates, but a congenital heart condition prevented him from playing with the other kids.
I was wrestling around with some older kids, and I passed out, and I remained unconscious for about 10 or 15 minutes. We went to the doctor, and they said I had an enlarged bottleneck heart, so I was more or less like a sickly kid.
Gacy's father expressed no sympathy for his son and saw the heart condition as one more failure. He pressured the boy to do well in school. Johnny disappointed his father even more when he fell behind in his studies because he was at home sick so often. In 1954, when he was 12, Johnny made his first real attempt at fitting in with the other boys when he joined the Boy Scouts. He earned merit badges in wilderness survival and campfire cooking. But despite his sense of belonging and achievement, Johnny knew he was different from the rest of the troop. The only other person who recognized this was his best friend, Barry Bushelli. One afternoon, while playing in his bedroom, Johnny shared a secret with his friend.
Johnny had his mother's silk panties and bra sitting in a bag in this closet. I was astounded. I said, "Johnny, what are you doing with those things?" And he said to me, he said, "I wonder if I ever dressed up as a woman, how I would look."
Young Gacy was deeply confused about his sexuality, but there was no one to help him, so he buried his secret deep inside. By the time he entered high school, the young man had learned to hide his confusion. John dated several girls and attended school dances with them, but neither his grades nor his health improved. In 1960, while attending Prosser Vocational High School, John was learning the printing trade. He had several fainting spells in shop class. His teachers agreed that he would never be able to work with machinery. John dropped out. He had disappointed his father yet again.
I couldn't get along with my father. I mean, he was just overbearing. I was dumb and stupid, never would amount to anything, and so I just took off and said, to hell with it.
In 1964, when John was 22, he accepted a job as a shoe salesman in Springfield, Illinois, the state capital, about 200 miles south of Chicago. On his own and free from his father's resentment, John was determined to make a name for himself. His mother, Marion, and sister, Karen, both thought a little independence was exactly what he needed.
That was John's, I hate to say the word salvation, but I think that that's where he came alive. He became himself.
Gacy craved acceptance and found it through volunteer work with the Junior Chamber of Commerce, better known as the JCs. Working harder than he ever did in school, Gacy organized anti-litter campaigns and booked speakers for sex education classes in the public schools. Soon, John found himself hobnobbing with politicians, including on several occasions, Illinois Governor Otto Kerner.
He was always very eager to volunteer to do anything at all. Whatever came up, he was eager to do. But he also, at the same time, wanted to make sure that he got his name in the paper or some recognition of some kind.
In February 1964, Gacy began dating a shy bookkeeper who worked with him at the shoe store, named Marlene Myers. Marlene's family was better off than his own, and John saw the relationship as another avenue for him to get ahead. That September, the couple married. The following year, his new wife became pregnant.
They were real excited about the baby coming, and John was just really, he just gleamed the real proud father thing. You know, he just glowed.
John was thrilled with the prospect of becoming a father, but the yearnings he had repressed as a boy were forcing their way back to the surface. On February 24, 1966, while Marlene was in labor in the hospital, John was at a bar with a male coworker.
We went to his house, and instead of having coffee, we had a couple more drinks, and I must have passed out. I woke up laying on his bed with no clothes on.
Gacy had oral sex with the man, and the next morning felt both exhilarated and ashamed. He pretended nothing had happened. He rushed to the hospital to see his wife and his newborn son, Michael.
He was such a good father when Michael was born. He was very nurturing, and he'd kiss him and he'd hold him, and he didn't learn that, I know. So it was just like a natural thing to him.
John's parents came down from Chicago to meet their grandson. For the first time, John saw pride in his father's eyes.
He was happy when he saw my brother settle down and get married and have a family. He was happy. It was like John reached the ultimate with that it was okay. He got through all of that, and now he's a family man.
Gacy seemed to have everything he wanted: a family, a good job, and a new relationship with his father. But over the next 2 years, the real John Wayne Gacy would be revealed. By the mid-1960s, John Wayne Gacy had made a name for himself as a young civic leader in Springfield, Illinois, and by all accounts had a promising future. But the ambitious family man was hiding a sexual compulsion that threatened to ruin him. In 1966, John, his wife Marlene, and their infant son moved to Waterloo, Iowa, a small town about 100 miles north of Des Moines. John's father-in-law owned 3 Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants in Waterloo. Business was booming, and he needed a manager. So, at 24, his son-in-law began learning the restaurant business. John loved being the boss and insisted that his employees and friends call him Colonel.
He wanted to be able to control people. He loved the idea that he could tell people, this is what I want you to do. I'm the boss.
John put in 16-hour days, but his commitment to the JCs never faltered. He was soon considered the most valuable new member in the Waterloo chapter.
I think probably it's just John's personality. He was very ambitious and wanted to be loved by everybody and liked by everybody and accepted, and it was just his way.
Local JC President Charles Hill was impressed with John's charm and powers of persuasion. The JCs appointed him chairman of their membership drive.
And talk about a membership chairman that no holds barred. I mean, he just did everything he could do to get new members, and he did it. He did the job.
Gacy lured men into joining the JCs by inviting them to the Clayton House Motel, where he screened illegal stag films and hosted orgies with prostitutes. In one evening, he signed up 20 new members. John's sexual romps also carried over into his marriage, with the full participation of his wife, Marlene. After an evening out, they would often swap spouses with other couples. When John's sister, Karen, came in from Chicago for a visit, her brother and sister-in-law revealed their little bedroom secrets.
He said, sometimes we don't always go home with the same persons we came with. I really thought it was a joke, but when it came time to go home, he took somebody else home to their house. That was the first time I felt I didn't know my brother, that I didn't know him. And I definitely, you can imagine how my thoughts diminished about this sister-in-law.
The Waterloo JCs knew all about John's sexual escapades, but that didn't keep him from earning enough votes to win the JC vice presidency and being honored as their Man of the Year. By 1967, he was a shoo-in for JC president and the father of another child named Christine. Yet there was a side to Gacy.